Your baggage with a child. Sebastian Vale didn't whisper it. He made sure the ballroom heard. For half a second, Naya Sefu couldn't feel her feet. She had crossed continents believing this man when he promised they could finally build something stable in Seoul. Now strangers were turning toward her. Someone gasped. A champagne glass stopped halfway to somebody's mouth. And Sebastian looked almost relieved, as though humiliating her publicly had finally removed a burden from his life. Then Eli's fingers tightened around hers. Mommy! Naya looked down. Her 6-year-old son's eyes were no longer on Sebastian. They were on her. Am I the baggage? That hurt more than Sebastian's words ever could. Naya's heart seemed to slam once against her ribs and forget what came next. She crouched immediately, ignoring the expensive satin gathering around her knees. No, baby. Her voice nearly betrayed her. She swallowed. Never you. Eli searched her face as though he needed to make absolutely certain. Naya stood. Sebastian expected tears. He knew her wounds. He had spent years learning exactly where to press. Too big. Too difficult. Too much. Lucky somebody chose you. Tonight, apparently, she had become baggage too. But Sebastian had forgotten one thing. Naya had survived being unwanted before. She would survive him. What she would not do was let her son watch her beg a man to recognize their worth. So she lifted her chin, took Eli's hand and walked. Across the ballroom, Han Jae-won stopped hearing the man beside him. He had seen beautiful women all his life. Beauty around powerful men was often curated with exhausting precision. Then Naya turned beneath the chandelier light. Jae-won stared. Not because she had been humiliated. Not because she looked vulnerable. Because she was breathtaking. Her rich skin caught the gold light. Her full, voluptuous silhouette moved beneath burgundy satin with commanding softness. But it was her face that trapped him. Pain was burning there. And still she protected her child before herself. Then something slipped from Eli's hand. A tiny silver astronaut attached to his backpack zipper. It hit the marble, rolled between two pairs of expensive shoes, kept going, and stopped against Han Jae-won's Oxford. Lee Hyun-woo noticed first. Then Sebastian. Then half the people nearby seemed to notice at once. Because everyone who mattered in that room knew whose shoe it had touched. Naya didn't. She only saw Eli instinctively move after it. And several people suddenly looked terrified for him. Jae-won could have summoned an employee. Hyun-woo was already shifting forward. Jae-won lifted one hand. Hyun-woo stopped. Then the man whose name could empty a room bent down himself. One knee touched the marble. Conversations died around them. Naya stopped walking. Sebastian's face lost color. Jae-won picked up the tiny astronaut and held it toward Eli. You dropped this. Eli stared at him. Then at the men standing several feet behind him. Then back at Jae-won. Are you a bad man? Somebody nearby inhaled so sharply it was almost funny. Hyun-woo looked like a man reconsidering every decision that had brought him to this exact evening. Jae-won's mouth almost moved. Sometimes. Eli accepted that with terrifying seriousness. Then his eyebrows pinched. Are you bad to mommies? Now Hyun-woo actually looked away. Jae-won didn't. His gaze lifted past Eli, straight toward Naya. No. One word. Quiet. Absolute. And Naya's pulse stumbled so badly she became annoyed with her own heart. Because the stranger wasn't merely looking at her. He was looking at her as if something impossible had just returned to him. Naya knew that look. Not the man. The look. Recognition. Her stomach tightened. She searched his face and found nothing in her memory. No restaurant. No airport. No business meeting. Nothing. Yet Han Jae-won looked at her like a man staring at a door he had once believed permanently closed. Then Naya noticed Sebastian. He wasn't angry anymore. He was afraid. And somehow that frightened her more than the stranger kneeling before her son. Sebastian knew exactly who Han Jae-won was. That was the problem. Minutes earlier, Sebastian had been comfortable humiliating Naya because he believed she had nobody powerful enough to make his cruelty expensive. Now Jae-won was standing beside Eli and looking at Naya. Sebastian's champagne glass trembled once. Giselle noticed. Sebastian. Not now. His answer came too quickly. Across the room, Jae-won's eyes moved toward him. Sebastian immediately looked away. Naya saw that too. Jae-won placed the astronaut into Eli's palm. Keep hold of him.
Eli nodded.
Then Jae-won looked at Naya. Naya Sefyu. Her pulse kicked. She had never given him her name. How do you know me? For the first time, uncertainty touched Han Jae-won's face. Not fear. Something stranger. Memory. Before he could answer, Naya tightened her grip around Eli's hand. Whatever game this was, she had already survived enough humiliation for one evening. We're leaving. Jae-won didn't stop her. He only watched her go. 5 minutes later, Hyun-woo found Jae-won alone on the terrace. You know her. Jae-won watched Naya's taxi disappear far below. Once, Hyun-woo waited. Jae-won rarely volunteered explanations. Tonight was no exception. Find out why Sebastian Vale brought her here. Hyun-woo's eyes narrowed. And the child. Jae-won's jaw tightened. Find out everything. Then he added the part that made Hyun-woo look at him twice. Quietly. Jae-won didn't want Naya frightened. He had already seen enough fear in her eyes. Naya waited until Eli was asleep. Then she broke. Quietly. One hand over her mouth because the apartment walls were thin, and the last thing she wanted was her son waking to hear her cry. Sebastian's sentence kept returning. Baggage. Shouldn't have mattered. But old wounds rarely cared whether they were logical. Naya stared at the 2 suitcases still sitting against the wall. She had one mission now. Build a life. Find work. Give Eli stability. And never again allow Sebastian to decide what she was worth. Her phone vibrated. Unknown number. Did you get home safely? Naya frowned. A second message appeared. Ji. Her heart did something ridiculous. Then her irritation rescued her. She typed, How did you get my number? The reply arrived almost immediately. You asked how I knew your name. I owe you an explanation. Naya stared, then typed 3 words. Keep your explanation. She blocked the number. Across Seoul, Han Jae-won looked at his phone, and, for the first time that night, smiled. 2 days later, Jae-won made his first mistake. He sent Naya a designer handbag. Naya sent it back. Unopened. The card on top read, I need employment, not accessories. Please learn the difference. Hyun-woo read it once, then developed a sudden fascination with the window. Jae-won looked up. Something funny?
No.
Hyun-woo's mouth betrayed him. Jae-won looked back at the note. Nobody returned his gifts. Nobody instructed him to learn anything. He should have been offended. Instead, he wanted to see her again. Badly. Naya didn't need a handbag. She needed this. A borrowed studio desk. A stack of textile samples. 3 interviews. And one chance to prove the career she had built before Sebastian had not disappeared simply because he stopped believing in her. Her work blended contemporary interiors with Pan-African textures, patterns, and warmth. It was hers. It existed before Jae-won. Before Sebastian. Before Seoul. That mattered. Because Naya had no intention of becoming a supporting character in another powerful man's life. The cold air helped. Not much, but enough to stop her from crying where strangers could watch. Naya rested both hands against the glass railing and forced herself to breathe. Sebastian didn't break her tonight. He only repeated words she had heard in different voices for years. Too big. Too difficult. Too much. Motherhood simply gave people another reason to pretend she wasn't worth choosing. She closed her eyes. No more. This city would not hear her beg. Neither would Sebastian. The terrace door opened. Naya didn't turn. She already knew who it was. No one else carried themselves with that kind of controlled silence. Jae-won stopped several steps away. He didn't invade her space. He didn't apologize for Sebastian. He didn't offer sympathy. He simply stood there, giving her room to decide whether he deserved even a single word. That alone unsettled her. You don't have to feel sorry for me. It was the first thing she said. Jae-won's expression barely changed. I don't. The answer arrived so quickly she almost frowned. I don't need charity either. I know. She looked at him properly. Most powerful men rush to reassure, to flatter, to promise. This one simply answered the truth. That irritated her far more than empty compliments would have. Jae-won finally spoke. I wasn't looking at you because I pitied you. Naya waited. You were the most beautiful woman in that ballroom. She almost laughed. Not because she believed him. Because she couldn't. Years of criticism didn't disappear because one stranger happened to disagree. You don't even know me. I'd like to. His voice remained calm. No performance. No pressure. Only certainty. That certainty frightened her. The terrace door opened again. Mommy! Eli hurried across the stone floor and hugged her waist. I found you. Naya smiled for the first time that night. A real smile. Jae-won noticed immediately. The room inside had been full of expensive people trying to impress one another. Yet nothing there matched the expression on Naya's face when her son hugged her. Jae-won understood something dangerous. If he ever wanted her trust, it would begin with Eli, not with her. Naya rested a hand on Eli's shoulder. We should go. She expected Jae-won to stop her. Powerful men always believed every conversation ended on their terms. He surprised her again. Have a safe evening. Nothing more. No demand. No request for her number.
No invitation.
Only respect. That somehow lingered in her thoughts far longer than any rehearsed charm could have. Sebastian never noticed Naya looking back. His attention remained fixed elsewhere.
On Han Jaun.
A bead of sweat formed beneath his collar. He had expected humiliation. He had expected tears. He had not expected Seoul's most feared man to notice her. That changed everything. And if Han Jae-won remembered what happened years ago, Sebastian's carefully constructed future could collapse overnight. Hyunwoo waited until they were alone. You recognized her. Jae-won kept walking. Yes. The woman from years ago? Another quiet answer. Yes. Hyunwoo had seen many impossible things. His boss surviving assassination attempts. Negotiating peace between rival syndicates. Walking into rooms where armed men lowered their weapons without being asked. None of them shocked him as much as Jae-won's expression tonight. It wasn't obsession. Not yet. It was gratitude. Years earlier, he had been younger, bleeding, alone. His enemies believed he wouldn't survive the night. A stranger had found him. She hadn't asked who he was. She hadn't searched his pockets. She hadn't demanded anything in return. She simply helped. Tonight, that stranger had walked back into his life carrying a little boy's hand. And somehow, she had become even more beautiful than memory allowed. Their apartment was tiny, but it was peaceful. Naya helped Eli change into pajamas before sitting beside him on the little bed they currently shared. He hugged his silver astronaut tightly. Mommy? Yes. I think the tall man liked you. She laughed despite herself. You've known him for about 30 seconds. I still think he did. Naya smiled. Children imagined impossible things all the time, didn't they? Long after Eli drifted to sleep, Naya remained awake. She replayed the evening again and again. Sebastian's cruelty. Eli's question. The stranger who had knelt before her son. His eyes. No. She refused to romanticize one unexpected encounter. Powerful men admired beautiful things every day. Tomorrow he would probably forget she existed. That would be better. Safer. So why couldn't she stop thinking about him? Morning arrived with brutal honesty. Bills still existed. Job interviews still mattered. Eli still needed breakfast. Real life never paused because someone's heart had been bruised. Naya looked at her reflection. No distractions. She repeated it twice. Today was about rebuilding. Not remembering a handsome stranger whose eyes had unsettled every defense she possessed. Eli held out his tiny backpack. Can you fix it, Mommy? She clipped the little astronaut back into place. There. He smiled proudly. Today's going to be good. Naya kissed his forehead. It has to be. She wasn't speaking to him anymore. She was speaking to herself. Jae-won had slept less than 2 hours. His mind refused to leave the ballroom. Not the insult. Not Sebastian. Naya. He remembered every detail of the woman who once helped him. But yesterday he had met someone even stronger. She had been publicly humiliated, yet the only person she comforted was her son. That kind of strength couldn't be purchased. It had to be earned. Find her. Hyunwoo blinked once. The woman. Jae-won nodded.
No intimidación.
No surveillance teams following her. No interference with her life. Hyunwoo waited. What exactly do you want? Jae-won's answer surprised even himself. I want to know whether she's safe. Nothing more. Nothing less. Fabric never lied. Patterns didn't judge. Colors didn't whisper cruel things behind your back. Inside her little design studio, Naya finally felt like herself again. She spread sketches across the table. This business wasn't just employment. It was proof. Proof that her future no longer depended on Sebastian choosing her. Movement outside caught her attention. A black sedan, parked across the street. It might have belonged to anyone. Still, something about it unsettled her. She watched for several seconds. The car never moved. Finally she shook her head. "You're imagining things." She returned to work. But the uneasy feeling refused to leave. It had only just begun. Hyun-woo disliked coincidences. Within an hour he had confirmed Naya's design studio. Within 2 hours he had learned she had arrived in Seoul only recently. Then another detail appeared. 3 separate apartment applications. All rejected, despite excellent references. He leaned back slowly. Something about that felt manufactured. Polite smile. Another apology. Another opportunity disappearing without explanation. Naya thanked the receptionist anyway. By the time she stepped back onto the street, the smile had vanished. This was the 4th unexpected rejection in less than 2 weeks. Her qualifications hadn't changed. Neither had her determination. Only the answers. "Naya." She froze. There was only one voice capable of making old wounds ache that quickly. Sebastian stood several steps away. "You look tired," he observed. She met his eyes.
I'm busy.
"I was trying to be kind. You should probably start somewhere else." She walked around him before he could answer. This time, he didn't stop her. Hyun-woo entered quietly. "Something isn't right." Jae-won looked up. "The apartment rejections?" "Not only those." Hyun-woo placed a folder on the desk. "Someone keeps arriving before she does." Jae-won's expression hardened. "Explain." "Every door closes just before Naya reaches it." The room fell silent. That wasn't bad luck. It was planning. That afternoon Eli drew 3 people. Himself, his mother, and an impossibly tall man wearing black. His teacher smiled. "Who's that?" Eli answered without hesitation. "The nice man who knelt down." Then he carefully colored the man's smile. Even though Jae-won had barely smiled at all. Because that was how Eli remembered him. Late that evening Jae-won tried reading. He finished 3 pages. Not because the book was difficult. Because every few lines, one name interrupted his concentration. Naya. He closed the book. For years, he had disciplined himself to separate emotion from judgment. Tonight, neither listened. The woman he had once remembered as a fleeting act of kindness had returned carrying a child, and somehow occupied every quiet corner of his mind. Her phone vibrated. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. "Hello." Only breathing answered. Then a calm voice. "You should leave Seoul." The line disconnected. Naya stared at the screen. Wrong number. It had to be. Yet something about the voice settled heavily inside her chest. Across the street, the sedan remained. A gloved hand closed a notebook. One page already contained today's date. Below it 3 handwritten words. Naya left early. The notebook closed. The engine started. And the car slipped quietly into Seoul traffic. Eli always waited on the same bench. Always counted the blue buses first. Always smiled the moment he saw his mother. Today was no different. The instant Naya appeared through the school gate, he jumped down and ran straight into her arms. For one peaceful minute, the rest of the world disappeared. Naya stopped walking. A familiar black sedan had just pulled to the curb. The rear door opened. Han Jae-won stepped onto the sidewalk. He wasn't blocking her path. He wasn't surrounded by intimidation. He simply stood there. Eli looked up, his face immediately brightening. The tall man. Jae-won's serious expression softened almost invisibly. "Hello again, Eli." For the second time in 2 days, fate refused to leave Naya alone. Eli smiled as though they were old friends. "You remembered my name." Jae-won nodded. "I remember important names." The little boy beamed. Naya noticed something unusual. Jae-won never spoke down to Eli. No exaggerated voice. No forced smile. He answered him exactly as he would answer an adult. For reasons she couldn't explain, that mattered. "I owe your son an apology." Naya frowned. "For what?" I interrupted your evening. You didn't. I still would like permission to buy him another astronaut. Eli's eyes widened instantly. Naya answered before he could. That's not necessary. Jae-won accepted the refusal with a single nod. I understand.
No argument. No persuasión.
Again, he simply respected her answer. Eli tilted his head. Do you have any children? For the first time, Jae-won hesitated.
No.
Do you want some? Naya nearly closed her eyes.
Eli.
The boy looked confused. What? I was just asking. Jae-won's gaze drifted toward Naya for the briefest second. Maybe. The answer was quiet, but it lingered between them long after it was spoken. Hyun-woo stopped scrolling. 1 apartment rejection. 2, 3, 5. Different landlords. Different agencies. The exact same reference number attached to every denial. That wasn't coincidence. Someone with access had quietly poisoned every application before Naya ever walked through the door. Hyun-woo immediately reached for his phone. Jae-won listened without interrupting. When Hyun-woo finished, the office became very quiet. This started before the gala. Yes. Before she even knew I existed. Yes. Jae-won looked across the city. Someone had been arranging Naya's life. Moving her. Cornering her. Not to destroy her. To place her exactly where someone wanted her to be. That realization chilled him more than any threat directed at himself. Halfway to the subway entrance, Naya stopped. The strange feeling returned. Not fear. Awareness. The unmistakable sensation that unseen eyes were measuring every step she took. She turned slowly. Nothing. People hurried home carrying shopping bags and briefcases. Cars rolled past. No one seemed interested in her. She exhaled. Yet the feeling remained. Across the street, the notebook opened again. A fresh line appeared beneath the earlier notes. Left studio. Collected child. Encountered Jae-won. The pen stopped. Then another sentence was written with deliberate care. Proceed to next phase.
Eli pointed excitedly.
Mommy. Naya looked up. The same black sedan rolled quietly through the intersection before continuing without stopping. It wasn't even coming here, she said. I know. But I think the tall man is inside. She smiled despite herself. You've become quite the detective.
Eli grinned proudly.
Jae-won placed the small gift back inside its box. Don't send it. Hyun-woo raised an eyebrow. I thought it was for Eli. It is. Then why not? Jae-won closed the lid. Because his mother already said no. Hyun-woo stared for a moment. The feared boss of Seoul had just rejected his own idea, simply because Naya's boundary mattered. Hyun-woo frowned. One employment record existed. Then, didn't. A complete digital file had vanished between 2 archived backups. Someone had removed it carefully, professionally. Almost every trace of Naya's earliest months in Seoul had been erased. Only someone with significant access could have done that. Hyun-woo immediately understood. This investigation had just become far more dangerous. Naya refused to surrender another dream. If one client disappeared, she would find another. If one apartment closed its doors, she would keep knocking. Sebastian had already taken enough from her. No unseen enemy would take the rest. Without realizing it, someone watching from the shadows smiled. She was becoming exactly as resilient as they needed her to be. The phone rang again. Unknown number. This time she almost refused to answer. Almost. You were told to leave. The same calm voice. Naya's heartbeat quickened. Who is this? A soft chuckle. You've already met the reason. The line went dead. She looked slowly toward the rain-covered window. Someone knew exactly where she was. I've waited long enough. Hyun-woo looked up. What are you planning? I'm going to meet her properly. And if she refuses? Jae-won's answer came without hesitation. Then I leave. Hyun-woo almost smiled. Only one woman in Seoul could refuse Han Jae-won and have him willingly walk away. A courier arrived minutes later. No return address. Only her name. Inside rested a single handwritten card. Dinner.
No expectations. No obligations.
If you say no, I won't ask again. Signed only,
Han Jae-won.
She read it twice, then folded it closed. He had somehow managed to make an invitation sound like freedom. Eli noticed the card immediately. Is it from the tall man? Naya sighed. Maybe. Are you going? I haven't decided. He thought for several seconds. I think you should. She smiled. Why? Because when he looks at you. Eli searched for the right words. He looks happy. Naya's smile faded into quiet thought. Children often notice truths adults try to ignore. Across the street, the sedan had moved again. Not gone. Only closer. A pair of binoculars lowered. Another message was typed. She received the invitation. The reply arrived almost instantly. Good. Everything is proceeding exactly as planned. The engine remained off. The watcher settled back into the darkness. Waiting. After Eli fell asleep, the invitation remained on the table. Naya reached for it, then pulled her hand back. One dinner could become another disappointment. Another promise. Another man who admired her until life became inconvenient. She refused to repeat that story. Yet, Han Jae-won had never asked her to become smaller. That thought refused to leave her alone. Hyun-woo folded his arms. I've worked for you 12 years. Jae-won looked up. I know. I've seen you negotiate with men pointing guns at you. Faint pause. I've never seen you nervous about inviting a woman to dinner. Jae-won almost smiled. Neither have I. The next morning another courier arrived. No package? Naya asked. The man shook his head politely. Only a message. She waited. If you choose not to come, Mr. Han asked me to tell you he wishes you nothing but peace. The courier bowed slightly and left. No pressure. No second invitation. Only a choice. She stared at the number for almost a full minute, then pressed call. The line connected immediately. This is Han. His voice sounded exactly as calm as she remembered. Naya took a slow breath. I'll have dinner with you. She heard no celebration, only a quiet reply. Thank you. And somehow, that made saying yes feel less frightening. A single message appeared. Dinner confirmed. The unseen reader looked at it for several seconds, then typed only 4 words. Begin the next stage. The phone screen went dark. Outside, rain continued falling across Seoul. Neither Naya nor Jae-won realized that accepting one dinner invitation had quietly moved them both another step into a trap that had been prepared long before either of them believed fate had brought them together. Naya dressed more carefully than she wanted to admit. Not for Jae-won. For herself. If this evening ended badly, she wanted to remember that she had walked into it with confidence. She caught her own reflection. You are not asking anyone to choose you. The reminder steadied her. She picked up her handbag. Tonight was only dinner. Nothing more. Eli stopped in the hallway. His eyes widened. You look pretty. Naya laughed softly. Thank you. Is the tall man going to think so too? She gently tapped his nose. That isn't why I'm going. But he probably will. Children had an inconvenient habit of saying exactly what they believed. Jae-won arrived 15 minutes early. Not because he expected Naya to be late. Because waiting was easier than wondering whether she might change her mind. The table held no extravagant flowers. No expensive gifts. Only dinner. He wanted the evening to feel like a conversation. Not a transaction. When Naya entered, Jae-won stood. He didn't reach for her hand. He didn't comment on her appearance. Instead, he smiled. I'm glad you came. The words carried no hidden expectation. Only relief. For reasons she couldn't explain, that simple honesty relaxed her shoulders. Naya spoke first. I have one rule. Jae-won nodded.
I'm listening.
If tonight becomes about impressing me with money. She looked him directly in the eye. I'm leaving, he answered without hesitation. Then we won't discuss money.
No negotiation. No offense.
Just agreement. For the first time that evening, Naya smiled first. Across the street, another vehicle stopped. Its headlights switched off. The driver remained inside, watching, waiting. A message appeared on a secure phone. They're together. The reply came almost immediately. Good. Don't interfere yet. Let them get closer. The screen went dark. Somewhere beyond the hotel windows, 2 people believed they were beginning a quiet dinner. Someone else believed the real game had finally begun. Neither of them reached for the menu immediately. For several quiet seconds, they simply looked at one another. Naya finally smiled. So, what does Seoul's most feared man talk about when he isn't terrifying people? A faint laugh escaped Jae-won before he could stop it. I've been told I rarely terrify anyone who deserves kindness. That sounds carefully rehearsed. It isn't. His answer came so naturally that she almost believed him. You've heard stories about me. Naya nodded. Enough to know people move out of your way. They do. Why? Jae-won considered the question. Because fear spreads faster than truth. And the truth? I protect what belongs to me. His voice remained steady. For reasons she couldn't explain, that answer made her both calmer and more cautious. I should tell you something now. Jae-won waited. My son will always come first. I know. If someone ever asks me to choose. She shook her head. There won't be a choice. Jae-won answered without hesitation. I would never ask you to. For the first time that evening, Naya believed every word. Naya discovered something no newspaper had ever reported. Han Jae-won possessed a surprisingly dry sense of humor. It appeared without warning, disappeared just as quickly. When she laughed, he watched her with quiet admiration. Not because she was entertaining him, because hearing her laugh felt like watching someone recover a piece of themselves they had almost forgotten. Across the street, the observer never looked away from the entrance. Another report was sent. They're comfortable together now. The response arrived seconds later. Advance to phase 2. The watcher placed the phone down. For the first time, a slow smile appeared in the darkness. Exactly as planned. Jae-won never tried to impress her on the drive home. He asked about her work. About Eli. About what she wanted 5 years from now. Not once did he mention his wealth. Not once did he speak about influence. When the car stopped outside her apartment building, he stepped out first and opened the door. Thank you for trusting me with your evening. Naya nodded. Thank you for giving me a reason to. I won't ask when I'll see you again. Naya looked surprised. You won't. Jae-won shook his head. When you're ready, you'll decide. She searched his face for manipulation. Found none. He wasn't chasing control. He was giving it away. For someone like Han Jae-won, that might have been the rarest gift he possessed. The new photograph slid across the table. Naya. Jae-won. Together. Another hand picked up an older photograph. Years earlier. A frightened young man. A compassionate young woman kneeling beside him. The two images rested side by side. A quiet voice broke the silence. They're remembering each other faster than expected. Hyeonwoo's search finally reached an archive no one had opened in years. One medical report. One police incident. One unsigned witness statement. Every document pointed toward the same forgotten night. The night Jae-won almost died. And one name appeared where Hyun-woo least expected it. Naya Sefyu. He immediately closed the folder. Jae-won needed to see this himself. The faded receipt carried only one handwritten sentence. Don't give up. Someone still needs you. Jae-won closed his eyes. He remembered. Not just her face. Her voice. The way she had refused to leave an injured stranger alone. She had saved more than his life that night. She had rescued the last part of him that still believed kindness existed. And she had never even known his name. Before sunrise, an envelope slid silently beneath Naya's door. No knock. No footsteps. Inside waited a single photograph. It showed her leaving the restaurant with Han Jae-won. Across the bottom, someone had written 6 words in black ink. Now he belongs to your story. Naya had not opened the envelope yet. But somewhere in the city, the person who delivered it already knew exactly how frightened she would become once she did. Naya unfolded the photograph slowly. It showed her leaving the restaurant beside Han Jae-won. Someone had been watching them. Not by accident. Deliberately. Her eyes dropped to the handwritten sentence beneath the image. Now he belongs to your story. A chill climbed her spine. She wasn't frightened by the photograph. She was frightened by the certainty that whoever sent it wanted her to know she was being watched. Hyun-woo laid the recovered documents across the desk. I found evidence someone altered records connected to Naya years ago. Jae-won's eyes narrowed. Who had access? That's the problem. Hyun-woo looked up. The list is too small. Meaning, whoever did this understood both your past and hers. For the first time in days, Jae-won stopped thinking like a man in love. He started thinking like a strategist. She could ignore it, pretend it was a cruel joke. Instead, she reached for her phone. After several seconds of hesitation, she called Jae-won. When he answered, she spoke quietly. "Someone sent me a photograph." His voice changed immediately. "Are you alone?" The question landed with unexpected urgency. For the first time, Naya wondered whether the danger was real. Jae-won's chair scraped backward. "Don't touch the envelope." Naya frowned. "You sound like you expected this." "I hoped I was wrong." His calm voice had disappeared. "I'm coming to you. You don't even know where I live." "I do now." He ended the call. Hyun-woo had already picked up his keys. Neither man wasted another second. She looked outside. Nothing seemed unusual. Parents hurried children toward school. Delivery vans stopped and moved on. Life continued. Yet her heartbeat refused to settle. She folded the photograph carefully. Whoever had taken it wanted her frightened. She refused to give them that satisfaction. Then a black sedan turned onto her street. Jae-won's car arrived less than 3 minutes later. Hyun-woo stepped out first. His eyes swept the street. Too late. Jae-won followed his gaze. A second sedan was already disappearing around the corner. Someone had been here. Someone who knew exactly how much time they had before Jae-won arrived. The realization settled heavily between them. This wasn't random surveillance anymore. Someone was staying one move ahead. Hyun-woo slipped on thin protective gloves. He studied the envelope without opening it further. No return address.
No fingerprints.
Too clean. Jae-won looked toward Naya. "This wasn't meant to threaten you." She frowned. "It already has." He shook his head. "It was meant to make sure I knew someone could reach you." The room became very quiet. For the first time, Naya understood she might have walked into a danger much larger than herself. Jae-won's eyes settled on one tiny detail. The handwriting. He had seen it once before. Years ago. Not on a letter. On a warehouse inventory sheet recovered after an attack that should have killed him. Hyun-woo noticed the change in his face. "You recognize it." Jae-won answered quietly. "I hoped I never would again." "You really are worried." The words escaped before Naya could stop them. Jae-won looked at her. "I've been worried since the ballroom." She searched for exaggeration. Found none. "Why?" He held her gaze. "Because someone has already crossed one line." His voice dropped. "They rarely stop at one." Naya felt something inside her carefully built defenses begin to crack. Neither Naya nor Jae-won noticed the apartment door across the hall. It opened less than an inch. A hidden camera lens watched through the narrow gap. 3 photographs were taken in complete silence. Then the door closed again. Somebody now possessed proof that Han Jae-won had entered Naya Sefyu's home. And somewhere else in Seoul, someone had been waiting for exactly that moment. "I can assign protection." Jae-won's offer was calm. Naya folded her arms. "I don't want armed men following my son to school." "You won't." "I don't want my life turning into yours." His expression softened. "I'm trying to prevent that." She looked away. Accepting help felt dangerously close to surrender. Yet refusing it suddenly felt reckless. Eli wasn't trying to listen. He simply noticed things. He noticed his mother's shoulders relax whenever Jae-won spoke calmly. He noticed Jae-won never raised his voice. Most of all, he noticed the tall man always looked at his mother before speaking, as though her feelings mattered first. Children rarely understood complicated relationships, but they understood kindness. Back at headquarters, Hyun-woo pinned another photograph onto the board. Every incident formed a line. Apartment rejections, the anonymous calls, the photograph, the dinner. None of it happened by chance. Someone wasn't reacting to Jae-won. Someone was guiding him. That realization unsettled him more than any enemy he could identify. Sebastian's secretary hadn't announced anyone. The visitor entered anyway. "You look nervous." Sebastian's jaw tightened. "You shouldn't be here." The stranger chuckled softly. "She's accepted the invitation." Sebastian's face lost its remaining color. "You promised she wouldn't meet him." "I promised no such thing." The office suddenly felt much smaller. As Jae-won reached the door, Naya stopped him. "One question." He turned. "Why me?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he met her eyes with quiet honesty. I've asked myself that every day since the ballroom. It wasn't the answer she expected, and somehow, it felt more truthful than certainty ever could. The photographs slipped through Naya's trembling fingers. One showed her arriving at the studio, another showed Eli outside school, another showed the ballroom. Every picture had been taken before she and Jae-won truly knew each other. She lifted her eyes. You knew where I was. Jae-won didn't lie. I did. Every fragile piece of trust she had built shattered at once. She turned and walked out before he could explain. Naya couldn't breathe inside that building anymore. She took Eli's hand. We're going home. He didn't ask questions. He simply walked beside her. At the next intersection she answered a ringing phone for only 2 seconds.
I'm Buse.
She ended the call, then instinctively reached for Eli's hand again. Nothing. Her fingers closed around empty air.
Eli.
Her voice cut through the traffic. No answer. She searched every face, every doorway, every passing crowd. The tiny silver astronaut lay alone on the pavement. Her phone vibrated. An unknown number. A photograph appeared. Eli's backpack rested on a cold concrete floor. Naya felt the world disappear beneath her feet. Jae-won arrived moments later. One look at Naya told him everything. She thrust the phone into his hands. Beside Eli's backpack lay an object unmistakably connected to Jae-won's organization. Naya looked at him with absolute devastation. You did this. The words struck harder than any bullet. Jae-won couldn't even answer, because something else in the photograph had stolen his attention. Jae-won's face turned white. He zoomed in on the background of the photograph. A rusted steel beam. An old warehouse beside the Han River. He whispered a single sentence. They're waiting for me. Naya grabbed his arm. Who? For several seconds he couldn't speak. When he finally did, his voice barely existed. The man who took Eli. He swallowed once. Is the man I buried with my own hands. And if you need part 2, demand it in the comments now, because the man Han Jae-won buried years ago may be the one waiting for him in the darkness. And with Eli in his hands, Jae-won will have to face the deadliest secret of his past before he can save the woman and child who have become his entire world.